All right. So, problem 3. She did say blast off. Oh, hey, have a seat.
Oh boy.
Had a nice weekend?
Do you have work to do? Okay. All right. Problem 3 is 18 equals negative 5b minus 17. So my goal is to keep the b alone on one side of the equal sign at the end. So Stephen, what am I going to move first? What needs to go to the other side of the equal sign if I want the b alone at the end?
Of the what?
Look at the problem number 3. 18 equals negative 5b minus 17. I want the b alone on one side of the equal sign at the end. So what do I need to move from one side of the equal sign to the other sign first? What's my first step? What number needs to move?
5.
17. Because I want to take this 17 and move it over to the 18. So that all I have left on this side of the equal sign is the b. So it's a negative, so I make it a positive. And that cancels out to 0. Jose, you should be taking notes, please. So now I'm going to add these two together on this side, because what I do on one side, I do on the other. And 18 plus 17 is what? 35. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. Okay, so I've got 35. I'm going to rewrite it now. I've got 35 equals negative 5b. But I still want that b alone on one side of the equal sign.
You would put a positive 5 underneath the 5b.
Well, it's, Stephen, is that a multiplication, adding, subtracting, dividing problem? The negative 5b. It's multiplying, right?
Yeah.
Because that little pretend multiply sign would go right there. So we turn it into division. And we take that negative 5 and we put it right under the negative 5. And multiplying and dividing will cancel each other out to 0. Now what I have on one side of the equal sign, I do on the other. So now I've got 35 divided by negative 5. If you look on the wall for the rules of integer operations, when you multiply and divide, if you have two different signs, you have a negative answer. So now, how many times does 5 go into 35? You have calculators.
Answer it.
Yeah.
Says
7, yeah. And because I have mixed signs, it's a negative 7. So what I have left is negative 7 equals b. And I box that out because that is my final answer. It's all on the same line, A, B, C. They're just a little out of order. All right, so let's go to number 4. So write down on your paper negative 12 equals negative 8z plus 12. Yep. So, Valeria, your turn. All right, so I've got negative 12 equals negative 8z plus 12. What's the first number I need to move away from the negative 8z plus 12 over to the other side of the equal sign? No, what number do I want to move to the other side of the equal sign first? Yes, I do. Which one? This one, right here. I want to bring it over here. So I make it a negative because it's a positive to start with, right? And that cancels out for 0. Valeria, if I do it on one side of the equal sign, do I need to do it on the other?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So now I'm going to put a negative 12. If you look on the wall for the rules for integer operations, when you add and subtract the same, you have two of the same sign, you make it an addition problem and you keep the sign. So what's 12 plus 12? 24. You have a calculator, right? Let's use it. So it's
it looks like a minus.
It is a minus 24 because the rule was to keep the sign, right? So two negatives together just make a bigger negative. So now let's rewrite what we have left. And I'll rewrite negative 24 equals negative 8z. So Valeria, that 8z, is that a multiply or divide problem? It's a multiply. Remember that pretend dot is right in the middle. It's almost like if you imagine it, the dot, it's like a glue dot. It just sticks the two things together, right? Okay. So if they're stuck together with multiplication, how am I going to pull them apart? What's the opposite that I'm going to use to pull it apart? If it's stuck together with multiplication, what's the opposite of multiplying that I'd use to pull those two apart? Dividing, right? So I'm going to divide. That line means divide. So if it's -8, I put it over -8. And that will cross cancel each other out to 0.
Sorry.
What I do on one side of the equal sign, Valeria, am I going to do it on the other? Yeah, totally. So now I've got -24 divided by -8. How many times does 8 go into 24? You use your calculator. 24 divided by 8.
I knew it. No. 24.
3.
Yeah, it's 3.
Oh,
And it's a positive 3 because if you look at the wall, Valeria, for the rules for integer operations, when you multiply and divide, if you've got two of the same sign, you get a positive answer. So it was -24 and -8. Two same signs, positive answer. So now I'm going to rewrite what I have left. And what I have left is 3 equals z. And I'm going to box it out because that's my final answer.
wait, z equals 3?
Yep.
3.
Make sure you're taking these notes.
I'm writing the problem on this and writing the answers on this. Is that okay?
As long as you're writing the steps down.
Yeah, they're on.
Okay.
I wrote all of them here, and I think I have to.
Perfect. Perfect. All right, so let's go to number 5. You have a calculator, right? All right. So the problem is 1.3n minus 0.03 or 0.03 equals -9. So if I want the variable alone on one side of the equation at the end, which in this case is the letter n, I need to move that -0.03 over to the other side of the equal sign where the -9 is. How do I do that, Aiden?
You would, so we gotta get 0.03 on the other side of the equal sign.
Uh-huh. How am I going to move it over there?
Putting a, by.
It's a negative number now.
So you have to put a positive number underneath it,
Yeah.
which would be 0.03.
Good. And that will cancel out to 0, right? So what I do on one side of the equal sign, I'm going to do on the other. So for after that -9, I'm going to put 0.00 because zeros mean nothing in math and it doesn't change anything. And now I'm going to add that 0.03. So now you can use your calculator. The rules for integer operations on the wall say if you add and subtract two different signs, you treat it like a subtraction problem and you keep the sign of the larger number. So our larger number is the whole 9. So we're going to have a negative answer. So what you're going to do is take 9 minus 0.03. And if you didn't have a calculator, you would cross that 9 out to an 8. That 0 becomes a 10, which you then cross out and make a 9. And that 0 on the end becomes a 10. And so you have 10 minus 3 is 7. There's nothing to subtract from the 9, so it becomes a 9. And then there's nothing to subtract from the 8, so it becomes 8. So you have negative 8.97, right? Now let's rewrite what we have left. My rewrite is 1.3n equals negative 8.97. Aiden, my variable, I want to get it that letter n alone on one side of the equal sign. Is that a multiplication or a division problem?
It would be, so the problem right now is multiplication, but you have to use division to separate them.
Yeah, I'd have to use division to separate them and move the 1.3 to the other side of the equal sign so I get the n alone. So I put it over 1.3 and that cancels out for 0.